What does being a writer in the future look like? How will things be different in 10, 15, 20 years from now? I just want to talk about a few trends that are going on right now that are going to continue in the future that I think will be important to writers. If you're interested in the report that I checked out, it's the Future Today Institute, FTI. They do a report every year that is like 700 pages of all the different trends that are happening in all different areas of society. I'll drop a link to it in the video description. But here were some of my takeaways. The first one was that synthetic media will be used to generate popular likenesses to deliver a range of personalized products and services at scale. What is synthetic media? Well, it's anything that uses artificial intelligence to generate content. You may have seen certain services that allow you to enter a description of something and then it paints an image based on that. There's one service that hasn't been released yet that I think could be a potential game changer. OpenAI, which is an illustrious AI company that's responsible for creating the GPT-3 model that many people are talking about, they've demonstrated a new service called DALL-E. I'll put it up on the screen. And what it is it allows you to type in a description of something, and then it will generate many different images based on what you're looking for. So I'll throw a few examples up on the screen. So in this example, the person typed in a chair that looks like an avocado. And this is all generated by an AI, right? These aren't real images. This is drawn and rendered by an AI. Here's another one with a snail mixed as a harp. And again, the company says that this is all generated just by typing in some text. That's really interesting. Now, the one that caught my eye was this one right here, where you can generate a model with clothing. So you can put these clothes on a mannequin. So the example here is a red flannel shirt. All right. And this is the one that caught my eye, because then I started thinking, that could be the future of stock images. All right. So today, if you want to write a blog article, or if you want to put a picture on social media, a lot of people will go to Shutterstock.com or Unsplash.com or Deposit Photos. You'll look for the right photo, which is not always easy to find the right photo, right? And then you'll buy it, and then you can use it under a general license. In the future, what you could do is you could go to Shutterstock and look for an image, and then if you don't find what you're looking for, you just click a little button on the service, and you type in what you need, and it'll generate an AI render of what you need, and it'll be just as good, if not better, than what a human created. And I think that's the future for people who need content for blogs. It's the future for people like me who need things to put on YouTube thumbnails. And I think that's going to be a transformative way to create content. And if I were a vector artist or anyone who does composite images, I would be a little nervous about this. Now, to take this a little bit further, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that you could apply this to book covers. Like with that mannequin, if like for me, for example, I struggle finding good African-American models to put on my book covers. Well, this could take care of that problem. I'm looking for a middle-aged African-American male wearing a gabardine and a sweater with a salt and pepper beard. Here comes the render. And I can change the clothes with the click of a button. And designers could use that to put the image that you see in your head of your character on your book covers. So I think that, like I said, this will transform the way eventually that book cover designers and authors think about book covers. The next thing I pulled out of the report was companies are looking to upskill their workforce in machine learning and the basics of AI. Many companies are rolling out learning platforms, or they're doing deals with like LinkedIn or Skillshare to educate their workforce on learning new skills. So the company I work for just signed a deal with LinkedIn Learning, and I have a free subscription to LinkedIn Learning to learn whatever I want in terms of new skills. If companies are doing it because they're concerned about the future and machine learning potentially taking away jobs, then I think authors should be concerned about it as well. Not so much because machine learning is going to take away our jobs or anything like that, but because we really need to stay ahead of the curve. Our biggest value proposition as indie authors is the fact that we can be flexible and nimble. We have speed to market, meaning we can create content faster than traditionally published book authors can, and also that we have nuanced expertise. So you have expertise in the genre that you're writing in, and people will continue to buy your books because of that expertise. So even in a world where you can click a button and generate a book with very basic information in it, your expertise and your knowledge is still going to help you stay relevant in the future. So I encourage people to start thinking about the different skills that you're going to need as an author moving forward 10 to 15 years from now, maybe even sooner. A few ideas that I have that I would be taking a serious look at would be developing a basic knowledge of programming languages, like Python or JavaScript, because I think in the future that's going to be more relevant than it is now. I also think an understanding of smart contracts and cryptocurrencies is also an important thing to have, as well as basic graphic design skills. Oh, and don't forget data literacy, because data literacy is probably the single most important skill that authors will need to get a handle on in the future, because decisions will be made based on data. And if you understand that and you understand how to think about data, you're going to have an advantage in the future. Frankly, you have an advantage now if you understand data, but understanding one end of Excel from another will just be increasingly important as we move into the future. So be thinking about upskilling yourself, because you don't want to be the author that gets left behind. It's 2022 as I record this, and imagine an author 10 years ago who said, I'm never going to embrace ebooks or self-publishing or selling my books online because I don't believe in that. Where do you think those authors are now? Another takeaway from the report: machine learning is transitioning as new platforms allow businesses to leverage the power of AI to build applications without the need to know specific code. We're already seeing an increase in services and products in the author community that use artificial intelligence as a way to help authors. I think we're going to continue to see that, and as the cost of implementing AI models continues to decrease, we're going to see even more of it. I think the next phase at some point is going to be artificial intelligence interfaced with writing apps. We haven't really gotten there yet. There's a tool called Sudowrite that kind of does that. I can see Sudowrite being, or something like Sudowrite being implemented into a like Scrivener, right, or Dabble. To me, that makes a lot of sense, and that's coming. What that does mean for us, though, is that we have to be very careful with who we choose to invest our words and our manuscripts with. All right, because trust is a very important thing, and not all of these services are going to survive. So understanding artificial intelligence, understanding business, understanding data and how all this works, even just a basic level, will help you make those smart decisions. It'll also help you identify the services that are going to win. The next one: people will create multiple digital versions of themselves, each tailored for specific purposes. This will lead to fragmentation and a widening gap between who is a person in the physical world and who they project in various online platforms. This ties into the metaverse and virtual reality, and it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, thinking about people splitting off their personality into different avatars. I mean, we kind of do that in a sense with the internet right now, but I think it's going to get more intense. And I think it's going to become, in both ways, it's going to become easier to reach readers, and it's also going to become harder to reach readers. So right now, when we advertise, we try to advertise to people who we think are in our target market. We don't always succeed, but I think this is going to be more transformative for advertising. So the days of pay-per-click advertising as we know it, I think, are over. I think things are going to become more hyper-targeted, and what that looks like, I don't know. But I do think that in one respect, it's kind of cool if you think about it, that you can create an avatar. Like, for example, if I want to create an avatar as an urban fantasy reader, and that's all I care about, right? And I get bombarded with urban fantasy advertisements that are hyper targeted toward my tastes. Now, you could argue that that's kind of scary, but at least as an urban fantasy author, I can reach that person, right? I have a better chance of getting that person to buy my books because that's the types of things that they've said that they want. All right. So that's one, I think, good thing. But in the other respects, some of the metaverse stuff is a little scary. So I think we just have to see and see how it evolves. Next up, ransomware will become the new smash and grab of cybercrime. It's just a matter of time. That's all I'm going to say. I would just encourage people to really be thinking hard about cybersecurity and how to get around ransom attacks. I actually did a course, and in that course back in 2020, it's called Writing in Hard Times. I talk about ransom attacks and some tips. If you're interested in it, you can check it out at authorlevelup.com/hardtimes. That's all I'm going to say about that because I don't want to give any folks any ideas. Now, here's an interesting one. China will push for the broader use of its digital currency, the eCNY, within and outside of the country. Now, why did this one catch my eye? Well, it's interesting that governments are interested in spreading their own digital currencies because in a way that means that they will be able to monitor and track everything you do and everything you spend your money on. You could argue that governments already monitor things today, and I'm sure that they do, but monitoring it digitally, I think, is very problematic for a few reasons. The first is censorship. So censorship is raising its ugly head around the world again. I mean, there's many countries who've lived with censorship for a long time, but at least here in the United States, people are just losing their minds over books and things like that. And the government being able to censor you and stop you from buying certain books from a certain author, I think is very scary. Another thing is cancel culture. So maybe you buy a book from somebody, who ends up saying something that's crazy or displeasing to the government, and the government goes back and retroactively punishes anyone who supported that person. Right? So if you think cancel culture is bad now, I think in the future it's just going to continue to get worse. So as countries adopt these digital currencies, I would be thinking about how to insulate yourself from this risk, whether it be buying cryptocurrency or gold or whatever that looks like. But that is a concerning trend that I would keep my eye on because that's one that could become problematic and hit home for authors, especially if you write books that are very political. Next up, blockchain-based applications are being used to track the origins of content online and permanently store original assets, improving the ability of consumers and businesses to authenticate information. It's becoming increasingly harder to know whether artificial intelligence is involved with the creation of some content. There are authors right now who are creating some books that are partially written by AIs. There are probably some YouTube videos you've seen that have been edited by AIs, particularly in the news space. There are many images and many different types of content that unless someone pointed it out, you would probably never know that it was created in whole or in part by an AI. I'm sure everyone has seen the videos circulating around with Tom Cruise deepfakes, where they take videos of Tom Cruise and they make him do things and say things that he just never said. I think that's a little weird to start, but I think in the future it's going to be hard to know what is real and what's not. I mean, hell, even now it's kind of difficult to know what's real and what's not, especially during the pandemic times we live in. I think that's only going to continue to get worse. And I don't know about you, but I don't trust social media companies to do the sorting of truth for me. So this cuts both ways. You need some way to authenticate that what you're looking at is real without it being overwhelming. I mean, think about it. If you had to determine whether every piece of media you ever saw in your life was real or fake, that would just be overwhelming and people would just check out. So you need some way of authenticating content, but I think in the future as well, you're going to need some way as a creator to authenticate the content that you create. So if someone does take a video of you and make you say something that you never said and it's horrible, or it's racist or misogynist or whatever, you need some way to authenticate the content that you create. I don't know what that looks like, but I think it's going to be interesting, for lack of a better word, to live in a future where you can't trust what you see with your eyes. Now, you might have been thinking throughout this, but Michael, what about artificial intelligence audiobooks? What about artificial intelligence translation? What about other things that are more appropriate to writers? I think those things are encouraging. I think they're inspiring. But I think the real things that are going to disrupt our way of life and change everything for us as authors are the things that we aren't going to see coming. So that's why I like to expand my bubble of awareness and try to look at what's happening geopolitically, look at what's happening technologically, look at what's happening in other countries, because that's going to be an indicator, a better indicator, I think, of what's to come for us. What are your thoughts on the report, and what do you think the writer of the future is going to look like in 10 or 20 years? I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're interested in more thoughts that I have around the future, I do have a book series that I publish quarterly. It's called the Indie Author Confidential series, and it's secrets that no one will tell you about being a writer. And I frequently write about futuristic topics. So you can check it out at authorlevelup.com/confidential if you dare. Take care.
Perfect.